Welcome to another episode of our ChemTalk podcast. Today we have a special guest from our in-house team, I would say. He's one of the top entrepreneurs in Dubai. Abhishek Shah, the co-founder and CEO of the RSA Global Group, one of the shareholders of RSA-TALKE. So welcome, Abhishek.
Thank you, Markus. Pleasure to be here. Looking forward to the conversation.
Great you found the time to sit with us and have a little chat around not this business, which is yours, but maybe how it came all together and what your journey was in terms of entrepreneurship. But maybe just start with a short introduction. Who is Abhishek? And
Well, thanks so much. My name's Abhishek, like you mentioned, and Dubai has been home for almost 24 years now. The UAE is where I've lived for a long time. Indian origin family, but born and brought up in East Africa, so a bit of a mix. Educated in the UK, experienced the logistics and supply chain world in Singapore. So I would say what they call is today's global citizen. And I've had the fortune of being able to build and create RSA from a very early age, along with my father. We founded the business together. I think that's in itself a unique proposition. If people in my sort of journey in life to start something with their dad rather than inherit something from them. So that was a great experience. RSA is the only professional sort of thing I've really done. I tell many people that it's an advantage and a curse because you don't know any better. So, but yes, that's a brief about who I am.
No, I think that's also special in your case now that, as you said, you founded it together. It's not that you inherited an old company which was existing over 30, 40 years. So but what made you, as Abhishek, to say, okay, Dad, let's do this, I'm in. Instead of, I go for my job and I go normal university route and then find something which 90% of the people do.
Yeah, so I think from our side, I think it comes down to also the childhood and how you were brought up. I think being a part of he was a first generation entrepreneur in his family, and having that ingrained. And I think from the earliest memories I have, if there was any time on school holidays or weekend, I was either an admin guy holding his briefcase in the car, or I was being the driver when I could drive. And you just got exposed to the element of being in a decision-making meeting. And I think that was a exciting prospect to then think that one day, when could I be in one of these meetings and sort of be in that perspective. So I think from a young age, it was eventual that is what I wanted to do. But I still had to sort of experience life. So going to the UK for university was a very big part of building my character and knowing who I was. And through that period, even though I studied civil engineering, I would never let anybody make me an engineer. I'm not a good engineer. I was interested in it. The only advice of why I chose engineering was choose something you're not going to get bored of, was the advice I got when pick something university. And growing up in the early 2000s in Dubai, you just saw buildings going up everywhere. So I was like, how do they build a building? So that's what interested me. And I still ended up doing a master's in civil engineering, but with business management. And in the business management course, there was a supply chain case study of how they manufactured garments in the Far East of Asia and pre-labeled it for stores in the UK and Europe with different euro and pound pricing. And that blew my mind. I'm like, how can a factory know what the selling price is in this country? And that's when I learned about supply chain. And I think that's when the bug really got hit in me. And at the same time, Dad was building industrial real estate in Dubai, and I came up with the idea to say, the next building we build, why don't we create a brand, not just a real estate play? And this is why he's smarter than me. He said, we can do it as long as you take care of the customers and the employees. And I was like, yeah, sure. And this is why I'm balding today. It's to do with that. But no, that's exactly how it started and why the energy came into that. But we started at a tough time. Dubai was having its global financial crisis, as was the rest of the world. I was lucky to get an opportunity in Singapore to learn logistics. And I think there it was a great school where in a short period of time, I got to almost do every facet of that chain of doing warehouse operations to customs brokerage to sea freight to coordination and customer service in that chain in this internship with this company there, which really then taught me a little bit about how this all works. And then we came back and really put the foot to the metal on RSA.
So you actually worked for another company, like an
I did.
internship program.
Internship, 6 months. 6 months. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, yeah.
But you saw a bit something else.
I did. Yeah.
And I mean, yeah, from your side with supply chain, we just heard how you came to it. But from your dad's side, I mean, why did you go into Dubai or real estate, which is, let's say, part what you're doing today, the real estate pieces? I mean, you still have the buildings, you operate themselves, but what made him going into Dubai and choosing that kind of business?
Yeah, so like I said, I mean, my father was a first-generation entrepreneur himself, so opportunity is what drove a lot of the decisions in life, rather than, I would say, very calculated long-term strategy. Mm-hmm. So Dubai moved for the family in the early 2000s was purely based on a quality of life decision for the family. At that point in time. So then when your family is based in a new country and your economic element was in another country, you look for opportunities where naturally your base is shifting to. And I think just with the natural growth of Dubai in its first unbelievable phase in the 2000s, industrial real estate, there was a demand gap. So I think that's what he sort of went into, and that's how he sort of built that out, and that's how he sort of got into that space, right? It seemed a serendipitous moment of also people that you meet. You find contractors, designers, customers, all sort of happened at one go. I was still very young then, but this is what I remember from that point.
New country, kind of new type of business. You didn't do that somewhere else before. Would you, reflecting backwards, say this was actually quite a huge risk to go that way?
I mean, I don't think if you do this podcast with him, his life story is pretty crazy. He moved at the age of 19 to Kenya to be a car washman, right? So I don't think that kind of move was going to be very destabilizing for him. Mm-hmm. It was probably more for the rest of the family. But it was also a familiar city to us. We had relatives here. We had a sort of a second base here. We were moving as a family, and it was sort of exciting, right? I think I don't think it was a rough move coming here. It was a sudden move, but it was not a rough move from that point. And it was still an aspirational place to be, even back then. It's more today than it was then, I think, but it was still an aspirational place to be. And like I said, quality of life for my siblings and I was the priority.
It was maybe a bit more unknown than today. But
yeah, sure.
But also... I mean,
not coming from Kenya. From Kenya, Dubai was still the place to go.
Yeah, okay, yeah. But I mean, let's say what we see now globally, the whole world is coming here.
Exactly, yeah.
Making our life sometimes a bit more complicated. But from an entrepreneurial point of view, would you say that if you want to really succeed as an entrepreneur, you'll need to take certain risks, which might even be uncalculated or not really controllable?
100%. I mean, the life and road of an entrepreneur is not really for the faint-hearted, just purely because the buck sort of stops with you as an entrepreneur, right? Mm-hmm. You, your co-founders, or there's nobody else beyond you to blame, right? At the end of the day, it is your decisions. You have to make payroll for your employees. And I always tell people, until you've had the stress of making sure that you have to make money available to feed people's families who work for you, who rely on you, I don't think you know the journey of an entrepreneur. Because many, many times in that journey, you have that pain, you have that moments of doubt. So I think that's one piece with the emotional baggage that comes that family may not be able to eat tomorrow if we don't pay them on time, for example, right? That's a very drastic statement, but it's something that mentally can weigh on you as an entrepreneur. But that's sort of the downsides, but then it's the upside is the fulfillment of building something you wanted to create, the impact you have on helping people grow and achieve their dreams, adding value to your customer, making sure that the customer's business is meeting its objectives because you're an enabler to their business. So I think all those are the sort of pros and cons of it, like with everything, but you're hoping that after a period of time, being an entrepreneur has more pros and cons. I mean, the idea for taking that kind of risk is you are controlling your time better. You have the ability to basically choose the direction you want to go in, and sort of live that more sort of independent life. Mm-hmm. So I love entrepreneurship. I think it's great from what it does to economies, what it does to this city in particular. And Dubai and the UAE has been so welcoming of it, and more so even in the last 10 years to attract them. I can only sort of vouch for it. But you got to go in with something that has value and have passion that you're going to stick through the bad days with it.
Also, here, the area of Dubai where our business is now present, it was, I think, you were the first or one of the first who actually believed into this vision, which is then, I think, another bold step to take to say, okay, they have a theoretical plan. Half of the world thinks they are crazy what they're planning. But you guys said, no, that's really something we want to go. And I mean, especially you in a young age, who hasn't had a lot of experience, what made you feel, okay, this is really something which will develop?
Sure. So here again, I think it comes down to the entrepreneurial grit, right? In those years, it was still not possible to run a logistics entity without having a local partner. So there were certain services you could not do, and that is why we were technically restricted to only being a industrial real estate operator, right? And so when we discussed that we wanted to build out a brand and have a service-oriented organization, it was a element of Dubai South, or then it was called Dubai World Central, said you are allowed to come and do all logistics activities technically without a partner. And to their credit, they made it work for us at that point in time. So it was an element of need of a business model and a business plan we wanted to achieve, and a regulatory authority that allowed us to basically build that out, which is why we came to Dubai South. It was not to do with the 50-year vision that we now are also invested in and believe and see coming to life year on year. It was, we wanted to do something. This was a place that found that we could do it. So yes, initial risk was very high. Initial bravado had to be very much from that point of view. We were lucky and unlucky to be able to complete our building. I mean, one of our favorite stories is that we were a building just surrounded by camels, and there was no electricity, there was no roads. That is how our current headquarters was operated at that point in time. But look at where we are today. We were one of the first, and Dubai South has been a phenomenal partner to us in support of our growth. We proudly call ourselves as a Dubai South-born company that has now gone international and from the UAE, but really from Dubai South, and we love that. We love that. I mean, it's a great success story, and there's not many regional companies that have gone globally in our space. So we're excited by that.
Pretty sure that makes you feel quite proud now as well. I mean, you had all these challenges in the beginning, and now I feel sometimes also the same thing. That's proud when you drive in here and you just move through the roads and you see one RSA building, another RSA building. So sometimes people even say, "Oh, we're an RSA city now."
I think again that comes with first mover advantage. We had the pick of real estate because there was nobody else here, so we managed to create a little bit of a cluster of buildings to suit let's say our operational efficiency and our operational design, and that comes with a bit of first mover advantage. But nothing can happen without the collaboration of the authorities from that point of view. And I mean, I remember doing a session with Dubai South when we had just finished 10 years, that we had expanded 10 times in 10 years. So we had built 10 buildings in 10 years, right? So I think that was something that is pretty cool, that sometimes you don't really look back and appreciate from that point of view. So yeah, I mean, this is where we started. This is home, right?
I mean, then you kind of always look, of course, for new opportunities with your entrepreneurial spirit, but how then the chemical logistics came across? Because it's quite niche and special compared to, let's say, normal logistics.
This is honestly one of the greatest stories I think that the RSA legacy has. When you opened a brand new building in a zone that nobody knew, with no electricity or no roads, getting business, as you can imagine, was not easy. So you went to find what was not available to be stored in other areas, right? There was an incident that happened a few years before that banned a certain kind of chemical product to be stored in our neighboring free zone. So we had, by virtue of trying to do some marketing, a few inquiries that came for chemicals. So we went again to the authorities, say, how can we retrofit our building? What can we do to basically be able to store this? And we all worked collectively, and we met all our risk criteria, and that's how we started in the chemical business. But what ensued after was something we did not anticipate. So once that door opened with one customer, we had a flood of other customers. And then you quickly realize that as owners and operators of this business, we are not comfortable for a building that's not designed from the ground up for chemical storage to then store chemicals in. I think we had breached what was our own internal controls. And so that's where we set out to look for how do we now build a DG designed building from the ground up, which I don't think had been done essentially in the UAE at that point to such a level. And here's where we always go to our customers and say, how can you help? Who do you know, right? They recommended two or three people. One of them was the TALKE group. And after a year of having conversations with the TALKE group about how do we now build a building, or how can you consult for us to help design this building? And funny enough, customers were also telling them that in Dubai you should probably speak to RSA, that they're probably a company that you can work with. So it like with everything in moment, timing is everything in success, and that's how that conversation started. And we created RSA-TALKE as this joint venture, which also the next even more incredible part was one started as one building, in 3 years turned into 3 different projects. 4 times the investment that we initially started the partnership with, without really even testing true success. So there was an appetite for the market. There was timing with chemical production in the region that was about to expand very heavily, and there was a customer base that was willing to work with us. So I think there was a whole raft of great elements that just sort of worked together at that point in time. And today we're very proud to have this very successful chemical logistics platform, which obviously you have been leading for a long time. Yeah, you know, I would say that we are probably onshore logistics for a chemical life cycle. We're probably in the top 1 or 2 companies in the market, and I think that's a great achievement in 10 years.
Definitely, it is, yeah. But also there again, I mean, take the opportunity in order to create something, right?
But it's also the obsession. So I would say that in that first 3 or 4 years, I would say less now, but I was deeply entrenched into understanding the chemical world, right? What the chemical customer wants, how the chemical storage risks are, everything from how you read an MSDS to how you create a quote to how you get an approval to how the engineering design for each of our facilities was built to mitigate risk all the way through. And also change the standards. So I think we were the first closed warehouse, apart from a aircraft hangar, to utilize the firefighting system we did in 2014, right? Which then sort of became a standard in the industry. And I think that was, you weren't there, but that's where the chemical logistics at its best tagline sort of came out from the company. So it was all a hodgepodge of experiences that collectively 2 willing partners wanted to create and make a change for our customers. And today those customers, many of them are still with us, who started with us. So I think that's a phenomenal testament to that. So it's one of my favorite stories of the RSA journey.
And I think also that maybe that part of your development as RSA, more than others, is the collaboration aspect there. No? I mean, I think you mentioned it in between the lines, but I think that's a key element there. Cooperate with different parties, like you mentioned, the customers, then you try to find somebody who can help you. Other people maybe go and say, oh, who is maybe the best in it? I try to copy it and become somehow someone who can challenge them and get into competition.
No, you bring a big point. I think in the almost 16 years of RSA now, collaboration has been a big part of how we have built, right? So one is bringing a 75 or maybe then there were 70-year-old chemical 3rd generation privately owned chemical specialist to the market to partner with you also brings credibility, right? That you are able to attract this sort of a partner to come in and change the game. And not only do you financially spread the risk, but you're bringing technical competence and you're bringing credibility for your customers. And we tried to then build that model again for different industries, and we have sort of done that. We did that fairly well now in the cold chain industry. We tried to do that in the aviation sector. The project didn't work, but the partnership was very solid. It sort of did a very similar sort of thing. So I think that has become a big part of, and that came also from my education, right? You can go much further together with people rather than going alone. So collaboration builds a lot of that perspective, and we've loved that model. It's one of our 3 pillars of how we want to build a company going forward.
Yeah. I always say you guys are phenomenal in this networking and connecting people.
Yeah, thank you.
Part of, let's say, any type of business.
Yeah.
And looking forward now in terms of whatever endeavor is up for you in terms of RSA Global, other partnerships, further collaborations? What's up in your mind about that?
Yeah, so I think we've had to really take a step back after sort of 13, 14 years and figure out what we want to be. And I think today we've restructured and reorganized ourselves into 4 different segments. Right, so there's one which is our supply chain business, which basically does general cargo logistics, air, road, sea, on a global level. Then we have our joint venture here for the petrochemicals. Then we have our cold chain JV, which is looking for regional expansion into the GCC. And then we have our e-commerce business, which is our first truly tech-based product that is limited by nothing. It is a purely global scale product in its ability. So we now continue to develop into asset-based businesses and build a regional footprint. So going into the regional markets of Saudi, Oman. We had our India business, which we started in 2018, which still remains a very, very key market for us. It is deeply connected to the Middle East in terms of the trade lanes and being a pivot point for access to Africa. And the Made in India story is going to become a huge story for a product that needs to get around to the world. So we continue to develop in those markets where we want significant assets and feet on the ground in GCC and India. And while then having to build this network of global highways, digital highways, to access e-commerce products from different origin markets, whether it be US, the UK, Germany, Turkey, India, China, into all of these other markets, going back into as far as the US, but into Africa, into Europe, and into the Middle East as well. So we're very excited about what could be the next sort of 10 years for us. We are very well set up for this. We've had to invest heavily back into technology, business processes, people, to basically realign our business thinking for that. So we are truly excited for what happens next. And there's no better place from where to do that than Dubai.
Yeah, it's like from Dubai to the world.
You know what? Our first tagline for RSA Logistics, which was the first company that was ever registered. Yeah. So RSA stands for Road, Sea and Air Logistics, and it's still actually on one of our buildings. It was across the world from Dubai. That's actually what it says still today. That's what it was.
I remember also the early logo was a world. Or
it was a globe thing, exactly. Yes. Yeah. So it was the idea. It always was the initial idea. Yeah.
The vision is more alive than ever before.
Let's hope so. Vision is everything.
Yeah. One last point, not really a question, but what would be your biggest advice for an entrepreneur or a developing entrepreneur in this region, let's say?
Yes, I think in this region, the ecosystem that develops today is developed today is so much more conducive for entrepreneurs. One, there is an abundance of so much more than you can imagine. So even now, when look at it from a technology standpoint, with the world of AI, but also capital markets, also regulatory and authority systems, your job is now to find the best people to work with, an idea that you can really be passionate about for about 3 to 4 years, because that's how long it takes to build something and create product market fit, or create something that is going to be able to add value to a set of customers, and have this never-ending attitude that I will be able to do this. All right. So great team, the ecosystem exists, and creating that passion. I think without that, it's very difficult to survive that, because in my life, in your leadership career, I'm sure there are days you just don't want to come to the office. There's days you don't want to do stuff. But sometimes when you're an entrepreneur, there's almost no one you can speak to. So if you don't have that mental strength on your end, you will not be able to get out the next day, or you're just going to give up before it's too late. And sometimes you're just over the hill and you don't really realize it yet. So you got to keep in the game.
Thank you for that.
My
Great pleasure talking to you.
Thank you so much for having me.
And then let's look up for the next one.